Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you're watching from today. I'd love to know. And if you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to like and subscribe. All right, let's jump in. The cold stars over Sector 981 shimmered without mercy, a lonely stretch of space no ship dared to cross. For years, it stayed untouched, ruled by the iron hand of the Zirac Coalition. Their patrols watched every shadow, every signal, every drifting stone. Nothing escaped their control. Nothing, until now. Floating between two shattered moons, something appeared. Silent, dark, and wrong. At first glance, it looked like debris, some forgotten piece of war wreckage. But the longer they stared, the more wrong it felt. The scanners trembled out their results. Human warship. Active. Waiting. Commander Jorvik leaned closer to the main screen, his breath catching in his throat. Humans didn't come out here. Humans didn't dare. Yet here it was, a massive Terran vessel, its hull scarred but proud, hanging in the void like it belonged there. No call sign, no friendly greeting. Only a pulse. A quiet transmission blinked onto their systems, forcing itself through firewalls like it didn't care. The message was short, and it froze every officer where they stood. Return them, or burn with them. No explanation, no second chance, just a cold, final warning. Across the Zirek fleet, fear crept in. Quiet at first, then heavier, louder. Something terrible had crossed into their space, and it wasn't asking permission. The silence after the transmission was worse than any weapon blast. It filled the bridge of the Zirac flagship like a thick fog, choking every officer into stillness. Commander Jorvik's claws dug into the armrests of his command chair, the metal creaking under the pressure. Is this a joke? Someone whispered at the back of the room. Jorvik didn't answer. His eyes were locked on the drifting human ship, a dark shadow against the endless black, not moving, not threatening. Yet the threat was clear enough. He snapped his mandibles together and barked, "Full spectrum scans. Find out if they're alone." The bridge crew scrambled into motion, but deep down, Jorvik already knew. This wasn't a ship that wandered in by accident. Humans didn't do accidents, especially not here, especially not like this. He tapped a command into his console, pulling up the fleet's defensive grid. 12 ships under his command. 2 heavy cruisers, 6 patrol vessels, 4 missile corvettes. Enough firepower to crush any small rebellion in these outer sectors. Enough, he thought grimly, to handle one old human ship. Or at least, it should have been. The first scan came back empty. No escorts, no support vessels. Just the single warship, sitting still as death. "Commander," the sensor chief said quietly. "No additional contacts detected. They're alone." Jorvik's gut twisted. That was the worst news possible. Humans were never truly alone. If they appeared without backup, it meant either they were desperate or they were confident enough not to need it. He opened a private channel to the senior officers. "Prepare defensive formations. No aggressive moves. Yet." His mandibles clicked hard against each other. "And send a message to Central Command. Priority Alpha. We have a human incursion." As the message shot through subspace channels toward the heart of the Coalition's territory, Jorvik turned back toward the dark ship on the screen. His mind raced, trying to fit the pieces together. Why now? Why here? There was nothing valuable in Sector 981. Just abandoned mining fields, dead planets, broken moons. Nothing a human warship would care about unless... His heart skipped. Unless they weren't here for territory, they were here for something else. Or someone. He stood from his chair, stepping closer to the main viewport. His breath misted against the reinforced glass. What did we take? He muttered to himself. Behind him, officers whispered and shuffled, the air thick with fear. They all knew the stories. The last time humans had been provoked, truly provoked, 3 star systems had been burned into glass, not because they had bigger weapons, not because they had stronger fleets, but because they were relentless. They didn't stop. They didn't forgive. They came for you, no matter how far you ran. And this ship, this silent ghost, had crossed the forbidden lines with only 5 words as a warning. "Commander," said the communications officer suddenly, her voice strained. "New message. From the human ship." Jorvik snapped around. "Put it through." The message was a simple pulse of sound. No video. No clear voice. Just a low hum that twisted into something almost like speech. A whisper built out of static and thunder. "You have what is ours. Give it back, or we will take everything." No signature, no identification, no details, just a cold truth. They knew something, and they were willing to tear apart the sector to get it back. Jorvik slammed his fist against the armrest. He needed answers. Fast. "Security!" he barked. "Search all black site records, detention centers, anything that moved through this sector in the last year. Find out if we intercepted human assets." The security chief, a heavy-set officer with golden scales, shifted uneasily. "Commander, there are certain files, restricted files, higher clearance than us." "Override them," Jorvik snarled. "I'll answer for it later." The bridge lights dimmed as hacking programs went to work, slicing through encrypted archives the Coalition normally kept hidden even from its own officers. It took longer than Jorvik liked, nearly 5 long choking minutes. But finally, a file appeared on his screen, one flagged in bright red. Subject transfer. Biological assets from Terran border. Classified research. Directive 9. Jorvik opened it. His 4 eyes widened. 3 months ago, a secret unit operating near the Terran frontier had intercepted a small ship, barely large enough to hold a crew. The ship had been using low-energy signals to avoid detection. When boarded, the occupants fought back fiercely. 2 Coalition soldiers died before the humans were subdued, 5 captured, 2 dead during extraction, 3 survivors sent to Black Station 12. The notes were cold, clinical. Subjects resistant to standard psychological mapping. Genetic anomalies detected. Further testing authorized. Jorvik's claws clicked involuntarily. Black Station 12 was no ordinary prison. It was a hidden laboratory buried deep inside an asteroid field where the Coalition sent experiments, places where prisoners disappeared forever. He closed the file with a snarl. "Idiots," he hissed under his breath. "We poked something we don't understand." Another warning pulse came from the human ship, louder this time. It wasn't words anymore. It was a countdown. Numbers ticking down slowly on their systems. 300 seconds. 5 minutes. Jorvik turned to his officers. "Get me a channel to them. Now." The comms tech fumbled for a second, then nodded. Ready, sir? Jorvik straightened his uniform, took a slow breath, and spoke with as much command in his voice as he could muster. This is Commander Jorvik of the Zirak Coalition. You are trespassing in restricted space. State your purpose immediately, or we will be forced to engage. The reply came almost instantly. A child's voice, calm, icy, sharp enough to cut. You already know why we are here? The screen snapped back to black. Jorvik's blood ran cold. Around the bridge, he could feel the fear settling like a storm cloud. Officers looked at each other, waiting for someone to say what they were all thinking, but didn't dare voice. We were not ready for this. We thought the humans had grown weak. We were wrong. The countdown dropped below 4 minutes. Outside the flagship's thick armored hull, the human ship still floated without moving, its engines cold, its weapons silent. But Jorvik understood now. The threat wasn't in what they were showing. The threat was what they were hiding. He had 4 minutes left to make a decision. Surrender the prisoners, or watch Sector 981 fall into darkness. The countdown ticked down. 3 minutes. Commander Jorvik gripped the sides of his console so hard the steel creaked. Every second felt like a hammer striking the hull. Across the bridge, his officers waited for his orders, but none dared speak. Fear had turned them into statues. The human ship hadn't moved. It hadn't raised shields. It hadn't charged its weapons. It simply floated there, a silent threat, daring them to make the first mistake. A voice crackled from the back of the bridge. Commander, incoming transmission, not from them. Jorvik turned sharply. From who? Central Command, sir. High priority channel. The screen at the front of the bridge blinked to life, and a tall figure appeared. Admiral Vizar, one of the highest-ranking leaders in the Zirak fleet. His pale gold armor gleamed under the lights, but even through the static, his stiff posture betrayed fear. Commander Jorvik, Vizar barked, you are ordered to hold your position. Do not engage. Stall them. Reinforcements are en route. Jorvik stiffened. Admiral, they've issued a countdown. 5 minutes. We're down to 3. Vizar's mandibles clicked in frustration. Hold. Them. Off. He leaned closer to the camera. Whatever you do, you must not show weakness. If you panic, they will strike. The screen went black. Transmission cut. Jorvik turned back toward the viewport. His heart hammered in his chest. Weakness? He didn't feel weak. He felt like a rabbit facing a wolf, one that hadn't even started to show its teeth yet. Status? He barked. The comms officer swallowed hard. Countdown at 2 minutes. 40 seconds. No change from the human vessel. Weapon systems ready? Charged, sir. But firing without orders could trigger. The officer didn't finish the sentence. Everyone knew what firing first meant. War. Total, unstoppable war. Jorvik paced the bridge. He had 2 choices, and neither was good. He could surrender the prisoners, which would expose the secret Black Station operations and possibly bring shame and punishment from the Coalition's High Council. Or he could refuse and face the humans' rage firsthand. He opened the prisoner files again, flipping through them desperately, searching for anything, any leverage, names, ages, origins. They were civilians mostly. scientists, engineers, one child. A child. His breath caught. He looked up at the human ship once more, and for the first time, he understood. They weren't just rescuing soldiers, they were rescuing family. Sir, the sensor chief called out, voice tight, I'm detecting something strange. Jorvik rushed to the console. What is it? Gravitational anomalies around the human vessel, small shifts in the local field. It's like space itself is bending. Jorvik stared at the data. No weapons fired, no energy surges, and yet the very fabric of space around the human ship was beginning to twist, like it was being reshaped by something inside. Is it a weapon? He demanded. No known signature, sir, the sensor chief said. It's something else. 2 minutes left. On the screens, the human ship still drifted. But now, subtle ripples shimmered around its hull, like heat waves bending light on a hot day. The communications officer flinched as another signal hit their systems. Not a transmission, not a voice. A presence. Commander, she gasped. I think they're already inside our network. What? Jorvik spun around. Their systems. They're touching ours. Not hacking. Not attacking. It's like they're waiting for something. Waiting. The word echoed in Jorvik's mind. He turned back toward the viewport, watching the dark shape of the human vessel. It sat there, perfectly still, not firing, not moving. But he realized now, it wasn't stillness. It was patience. They had all the time in the universe. Jorvik had 2 minutes. He opened a private channel again, desperate. Security command. Locate the prisoners. Prepare them for immediate transfer. But Commander, now, he roared. A young Zirak officer ran across the bridge, datapad in hand. Commander, the prisoners, they're not on station anymore. Jorvik's heart stopped. Explain. The scientists were moved 2 weeks ago. Black Station 12 was cleared. Experimental transfer to... The officer hesitated. To where? Jorvik growled. Project Eclipse, sir. Deep core research. Unauthorized relocation. Project Eclipse. Jorvik had heard the name only in whispers. A blacker-than-black project buried so deep inside the Coalition's secrets that even speaking of it could get someone killed. 1 minute, 30 seconds left. The human ship's ripples grew stronger. Sparks danced along its battered hull like lightning trapped in a bottle. Jorvik stared, sweat beading along his forehead. We can't give them what they want, he whispered. We don't have it anymore. The bridge crew shifted uneasily. Some of them looked ready to run. Others gripped their weapons, their instincts torn between fight and flight. Sir, cried the communications officer. Another signal. This one direct. Jorvik stiffened. Play it. A single voice flooded the room. Not mechanical. Not human. Something between. Time is almost up, the voice said. Choose your fate. Then silence. The countdown hit 60 seconds. Jorvik's claws curled into fists. He could almost hear the gears of fate grinding toward him. The Zirak Coalition had kidnapped something they didn't understand. They had broken promises they didn't even remember making. And now, An ancient fear returned, the fear of humans not as allies or enemies, but as forces of nature. They would not bargain. They would not wait. They would not forgive. "Sir," whispered the young pilot, his voice barely more than a breath, "what do we do?" Jorvik stared at the clock. 50 seconds left. Outside, the human ship's hull blazed with growing light, the ripples around it stretching wider, reaching farther. Whatever was about to happen, it would not be a battle. It would be a lesson, a reminder, a reckoning. Commander Jorvik drew in one last shaky breath, and the countdown ticked down toward 0. The final seconds drained away like sand through desperate fingers. 50, 40, 30. On the bridge of the Zirak flagship, no one moved. No one spoke. Even the ship itself seemed to hold its breath, the engines running cold and silent, as if trying to make itself smaller, less noticeable. Commander Jorvik stood rigid, staring into the growing light around the human vessel. It wasn't just energy anymore. It was something bigger, something that made the air inside the ship feel heavier, made the metal walls creak like old bones under a rising storm. 20 seconds. Jorvik's mind raced. Was there still a way out? Should he surrender? Should he fire? Should he run? None of the choices felt like survival. 15 seconds. Across the viewport, the human warship was no longer silent. Its frame, once shadowed and dormant, now glowed faintly, veins of soft blue energy webbing across its hull like a heartbeat awakening. And those ripples, they weren't ripples anymore. They were tendrils, reaching outward into space, almost alive. 10 seconds. The human ship wasn't preparing to attack in the old way. No missiles. No plasma bolts. It was preparing to change the battlefield itself. 7. Jorvik clenched his jaw. He wasn't going to beg. Whatever happened, he would meet it standing. 5. Somewhere deep inside, a primal part of him screamed to abandon ship, to run far and fast, but there was nowhere left to go. No hiding place in all the stars. 3, 2, 1. The countdown hit 0. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. A stillness so deep, it seemed like even time itself had been caught, frozen in place. Then the space around the human ship folded. It didn't explode. It didn't fire. Instead, the very light around it bent inward, like a whirlpool pulling in starlight. Waves of distorted space rolled outward, invisible but undeniable, washing over the Zirak fleet with a soft, humming pulse that rattled every hull and shattered every unshielded system. The lights on the bridge flickered and dimmed. Consoles sparked. Static drowned out communications. Engines coughed and whined like wounded animals. "EMP strike!" the sensor chief cried, hands dancing over dead controls. "No," Jorvik whispered, his voice dry. "Something else." The flagship trembled under an unseen force. Warning sirens shrieked. Across the viewport, Jorvik could see the other Zirak ships, mighty cruisers and patrol crafts, drifting helplessly, their thrusters dead, their weapons dark. They weren't destroyed. They were erased from the fight. A soft chime sounded on the communications console. Despite the chaos, a new transmission pushed its way through the static. No encryption, no introduction. Just a clear, calm voice. The same childlike whisper from before. The first mercy has been given. You will not receive a second. Jorvik felt the words like a blade to the chest. The first mercy. This crippling of his fleet, was mercy. A warning shot, a gentle reminder. He gritted his teeth and slammed his claw down on the emergency comms. Broadcast fleet-wide. Now. The young officer obeyed, patches of fur along his arms, singed from shorted circuits. Jorvik leaned into the mic, forcing every drop of authority he had left into his voice. This is Commander Jorvik. All ships are to stand down. I repeat, stand down. No weapons to be charged, no signals to be sent. Power down all systems if necessary. The message echoed across the shattered fleet. There was no fight left, only survival. Jorvik turned to his second officer. Get me a line to the human ship, direct. The second officer hesitated, then nodded, manually routing a hard-line connection through what was left of the ship's battered systems. The connection opened with a soft click. No video, only audio. Jorvik spoke carefully, each word like a stone dropped into a still pond. This is Commander Jorvik of the Zirak Coalition, he said, his voice low and steady. We acknowledge your superiority. We request terms. For a moment, there was no reply. Only the soft hum of space folding and flexing around the human ship. Then the voice returned. Not angry, not mocking, just cold. You stole what is not yours. You hurt those who could not fight back. You broke trust that was given freely. Jorvik bowed his head. We did not know what we were taking. Ignorance is not forgiveness, the voice said. Return them, restore what you damaged, or watch everything you love fall into dust. Jorvik's throat tightened. We don't have them. Silence. Jorvik swallowed hard. They were moved, without my knowledge. I swear it. The connection crackled for a moment, and for the first time, Jorvik sensed uncertainty, not weakness, but calculation. Where? The voice asked. I can find out, Jorvik said quickly. Give me time. Give me... He hesitated. Would they even allow it? Would they care? 1 hour, the voice replied finally. After that, we stopped speaking. The channel closed with a soft, final click. Jorvik turned to his officers, who were still struggling to bring basic systems back online. Their faces, those with faces, were pale and tight with terror. 1 hour, Jorvik said grimly. We have 1 hour to find where the prisoners went. But Commander, his second said softly, what if Command won't tell us? What if they try to hide it? Jorvik looked back at the human ship, still sitting in space like a silent judgment. They won't be hiding from me, he said. They'll be hiding from them. The lights above flickered again. Somewhere deep within the ship, a bulkhead groaned under invisible pressure. Time was running out. And this time, there would be no more mercy. The bridge felt colder now, as if the very ship itself understood the danger they were in. Commander Jorvik moved quickly, not wasting a second. Every moment lost was a hammer strike against their survival. Security chief, he barked, turning sharply toward the officer hunched over a half-dead console. Access the Dominion internal archives. I want every prisoner transport in the last 6 months flagged and traced. The chief hesitated. Commander, without higher authorization, will trigger. Override it, Jorvik snapped. His voice sliced through the bridge like a whip. Or you'll be explaining to the humans why you failed. The officer paled, then nodded, hands flying over the manual keys. Sparks shot from one of the data cores. Systems were still struggling to breathe after the pulse from the human warship. Jorvik turned to the navigation officer. Get us a drift position. Move slow. Minimal energy output. I want them to know we aren't running, but also that we aren't stupid enough to power weapons. The young navigator, barely out of academy, judging by his shaking hands, complied, setting a lazy spiral away from the Earth Forge. They would drift helplessly through space, pretending surrender without raising suspicion. It was a fine line between showing respect and showing weakness. The comms officer called out, voice tense. Commander, our fleet's still disabled. No backup coming through subspace. We're blind and deaf beyond immediate range. Jorvik cursed under his breath. They were alone out here. Command wasn't going to risk another fleet, not yet. Not until they understood what they were truly facing. And by then, it would be too late. The security chief growled in frustration, slamming a fist onto the side of the console. Too many encrypted files, Commander. Layered authorizations. Someone really wanted these prisoners hidden. Jorvik stormed over, looming behind the officer. Show me. On the cracked holo display, lists of prisoner numbers scrolled past. Many blacked out, redacted with heavy bars of censorship. But one stood out. A transport marked Eclipse 947, flagged for special containment and routed far from standard Dominion facilities. Destination: unknown. Cargo: 3 Terran prisoners. Status: high priority. Immediate transfer. Recommended by Order of Council Directive Black. Jorvik's blood ran cold. Project Eclipse again. He had heard it in whispers across officer bars and secret meeting rooms. A research division so deep in the Dominion hierarchy that even asking about it could earn a quiet execution. And now, it was linked to the humans. And to the prisoners the Earth Forge had come for. He slammed his claw against the console. Find any station logs, docking times, supply routes, anything connected to Eclipse. The security chief shook his head helplessly. Without full central authorization, it's almost impossible, Commander. They scrubbed it clean. Jorvik gritted his mandibles together. He knew what that meant. Whoever ran Project Eclipse hadn't just hidden the prisoners. They had buried them. Time check, Jorvik barked. 42 minutes remaining, came the clipped response. Almost 20 minutes burned already, and he still had nothing to show. He turned sharply. Send an encrypted priority signal to Counselor Vren. Use the blind relay. Mark it as Omega-level emergency. The communications officer paled. Sir, that's treason. If we don't get answers, Jorvik said in a low growl, we won't be around long enough to be charged with treason. The officer nodded quickly and began tapping into the emergency frequencies, reserved only for the highest, most desperate crises, the ones meant to stay off the record. While the bridge worked, Jorvik paced, his boots thudding heavy against the reinforced deck plating. He could feel it. The human ship wasn't idly waiting. It was watching, judging, measuring. He could almost hear them, whispering across the stars. Decide, choose, prove your worth. The seconds bled away too fast. The comms officer gasped suddenly. Commander, response from Counselor Vren. Private channel. Jorvik was at the console in an instant, punching the key to accept the message. The hologram that blinked to life was low-res and jittery, the encryption warping Vren's figure into a ghost of sharp shoulders and narrow eyes. Jorvik, the counselor snapped, not wasting time. Do you have any idea the fire you're playing with? I don't have a choice, Jorvik replied through gritted teeth. They've disabled my fleet without firing a shot. I need to know where the prisoners were taken. Vren's image flickered. You were never supposed to know. Eclipse is off limits to military command. I'm about to be off limits to living if you don't tell me, Jorvik snapped. Where did they go? For a long moment, Vren hesitated. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he said, Station Helix, Deep Orbit, Sector 19, Beta. Jorvik frowned. That's abandoned territory. Mining colonies pulled out years ago. Exactly, Vren said. Helix isn't official. It's where we test the impossible. Where we build what we cannot admit exists. And the prisoners? They were transferred for adaptive research, Vren said darkly. Bioweaving, neural enhancements, experimental evolution trials. If the humans are here for them? He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Jorvik's stomach twisted. Thank you, he said stiffly. Vren's hologram leaned forward, shadows deep under his eyes. You didn't hear it from me, Jorvik? If you live through this, you never heard it. The screen blinked off. Jorvik turned back to the bridge. His voice was steel now. Helm, plot course to Sector 19 Beta. Silent approach. Low energy. Prep a shuttle crew. The officers hesitated. Move! Jorvik barked. They moved. Fast. Fear was a powerful motivator. Status on the countdown? He asked. 30 minutes remaining, Commander. Jorvik nodded grimly. Half the time was gone. Half the hope burned away. He tapped the private channel back to the human ship. The connection flared to life. But this time, the silence felt heavier. He knew they were listening. This is Commander Jorvik, he said carefully. We have found their location. I am en route now to retrieve them. No reply. But the shimmering tendrils around the Earth Forge stilled for a moment, almost as if the ship itself was thinking. Jorvik closed the channel and sat back in his chair. The real mission had begun. They had 30 minutes, a crippled fleet, a hidden black station, and a human warship that had not yet truly shown its power. And somewhere out there, in the dark, the prisoners waited. The clock kept ticking. The shuttle tore through the void, a silent dart against the black. Commander Jorvik sat strapped into the pilot seat, eyes locked on the cold readings flashing across the old navigation screen. Sector 19. Beta loomed ahead, a dead sector, abandoned after the mining collapse. Or so the official stories said. The Earth Forge hung far behind them, still and waiting, like a judge measuring their worth. If Jorvik failed, he knew There would be no trial, no second chances. He gripped the control yoke tighter as a shape emerged from the dark. Station Helix. It wasn't much to look at. A battered, twisted station bolted into the side of an asteroid, its outer hull pitted and cracked from old battles and meteor strikes. Lights flickered weakly around the docking arms. No welcome signals, no patrols, just a graveyard floating in space. Docking sequence initiated. The shuttle AI droned. Jorvik guided the shuttle in, heart hammering. His small team of guards sat ready behind him, armored and grim. They knew better than to expect a smooth mission. The shuttle kissed the side of the station with a soft clang. The docking clamps hissed, locking into place. "Move fast," Jorvik ordered as he unstrapped himself. "No mistakes." The airlock slid open with a screech. Inside, the station was worse than he expected. Darkness hung heavy in the halls. Old bloodstains marked the walls, some so old they had dried into black cracks. Flickering lights buzzed overhead. Broken machines lined the corridors like dead insects. Helix wasn't abandoned. It had been forgotten. They moved quickly, scanning for life signs. The bio-trackers pinged weak signals deeper inside. 3 human signatures, alive, but weak. "Found them," the security chief muttered. They rushed through the twisted halls, boots clanging on the rusted decks. Jorvik could feel it. The station wasn't just broken. It was wounded, as if whatever horrors had been committed here still lingered in the walls themselves. Finally, they reached a heavy blast door, half open, sparking weakly at the hinges. Beyond it, a dark chamber. Jorvik stepped inside first. There they were. 3 human prisoners, huddled against the far wall in thin survival suits, shackled together by heavy magnetic cuffs. Their faces were hollow, pale, but their eyes blazed with something that made Jorvik falter. They weren't just survivors. They were angry. The smallest one, a girl no older than 15, raised her head slowly as Jorvik approached. "You're late," she rasped. For a second, Jorvik didn't know how to respond. He motioned for the guards to cut the restraints. They hesitated, but the look Jorvik shot them made them move faster. The prisoners were freed, though they barely had the strength to stand. "We're getting you out," Jorvik said firmly. "You're safe now." The girl snorted, a weak sound. "Safe? Not while they're still breathing." Jorvik frowned. "Who?" But before she could answer, the station shuddered violently. An alarm blared, not from the station systems, but from the shuttle. "Commander!" The pilot's voice shrieked over the comms. "Incoming contacts! Hostile!" Jorvik cursed under his breath. "Move!" They raced back through the twisted halls, half carrying the weak prisoners. The whole station seemed to be coming apart now, like a dying animal thrashing in its final moments. When they reached the docking bay, the source of the alarm became horribly clear. A Dominion strike cruiser, sleek, black, and bristling with weapons, hovered nearby, its gun ports already glowing with energy. They must have tracked Helix too, desperate to cover up the secrets hidden inside. "They're going to destroy the station," the security chief said, horror thick in his voice. "And us with it," Jorvik growled. The shuttle's engines roared to life. They loaded the prisoners aboard in seconds, barely ahead of the first plasma blast that tore into the station's outer hull. The shuttle launched hard, engines straining, twisting away from the crumbling station as fire and metal exploded outward in slow-motion bursts. Jorvik's teeth clenched as the Dominion cruiser locked onto them, a second blast charging up. They wouldn't make it, not in this tiny shuttle. They were dead, until a shadow passed overhead. The Earth Forge. The human warship moved with terrifying grace, slipping between the Dominion cruiser and the shuttle like a blade sliding through cloth. The Dominion ship fired, but the energy blast simply bent around the Earth Forge, absorbed and swallowed by the rippling space that still danced along its hull. Then, for the first time, the Earth Forge struck back. It didn't fire missiles. It didn't launch fighters. It simply spoke. A pulse of silent energy lashed out, so pure it was almost invisible, and the Dominion cruiser blinked out of existence. Not exploded, not shattered, but erased, as if it had never been there. The silence that followed was even louder than the destruction. Jorvik stared in awe as the Earth Forge's docking bay opened, welcoming them in. The shuttle shuddered as it entered, magnetic clamps locking it into place. As they disembarked, medical teams rushed the prisoners away. Jorvik stood there a moment longer, shaking, heart pounding. He turned as a figure approached. It was her, the girl from the bridge, Ava. She was barefoot, calm, her eyes reflecting the stars. "You kept your promise," she said simply. Jorvik nodded, unsure what else to say. Ava looked past him toward the stars. Now it's their turn to pay. Jorvik swallowed hard. What happens now? Ava smiled. A small, sad smile that didn't reach her eyes. Now, she said, we show them what it means when humans don't forget. Behind her, the Earth Forge's engines flared to life, and the ship turned toward Dominion space, toward the ones who thought they could bury the past, toward the ones who were about to learn the future had already come for them. And it was unstoppable.